Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with my co-host, Patricia Kirkman, Miss PK. How are you tonight?
Fabulous. It's a gorgeous day. Beautiful winds, nice balmy breeze. It's like heaven. It's the calm before the storm. I'm not going to worry about what's coming next, but this is delightful.
Well, it sounds wonderful in Tucson. We actually had a nice day here in New England. Happy to report that we're finally getting some warmer temperatures. So my garden is in play. I've been out there planting like crazy. It's a good feeling.
Oh, that's wonderful. Good for you.
Yes. We've got a terrific guest tonight. And we're going to bring him on in a few minutes, Jeff Harman. And you know Jeff personally.
Yes.
He is quite the astrologer.
Marvelous.
And yes, we're going to talk about all kinds of things that are happening now, what's coming up, because Jeff is trained in so many aspects of astrology, including classical, Vedic, and Kabbalistic. We're going to hear so many new things tonight. I just can't wait. But before we get to Jeff, PK, what's going on with the numbers?
Oh, I hate to tell you this because it is a month of ending things, but today, issues dealing with females, issues dealing with sensitivity. And I hate to say it, but the Wicked Witch of the West keeps popping up, Nancy Pelosi. I'm sorry, folks, but that woman is really making a mess of everything. I wish she would quit calling names, do her job, quit trying to take things and make them go where other people can handle things. She's just incredible, incredible.
Well, I know you've looked at her numbers and her personality, and so tell us more about what she's doing wrong. And this, by the way, everybody, is not a political discussion. This is a discussion about how women and men lead in the world, and this is an unfortunate thing that's going on. So go ahead, PK.
Well, the thing that is the issue is she could, women can do so much by helping one another or working within the system. But she is so angry at the political arena that she forgets that she's also a woman. She's name-calling. Come on, don't call the president. So what if he's gained some weight? That's not the issue. She wants to take a look in the mirror. She looks like one of the mummies from Egypt. You can be calling names back and forth. It's not going to solve anything. But the bottom line is, aren't we supposed to work together to help one another? When this pandemic is going on, take from those that are in need and give it away to people that are out there that have no rights to it. Just not a very nice thing to do. This is a time when people are overly sensitive. And yes, there are some that are insensitive. But people are trying so hard to pull up their bootstraps and make it through this in a very positive way that they can end up feeling like there's growth to what they do, that there's an opportunity. Not let the sensitive side pull them back down where they feel there's no hope. We don't want to be hopeless. We want to be hopeful. So that's kind of it for the right now.
Yeah.
And hopefully next month we'll have better news.
I hope you'll have better female leaders to look to. This is such an important aspect.
I wish you'd retire.
Yeah, well, yeah, really, because we do need better female leaders. So many medicine men and women have been on the show with us, and they've talked about female energy is critical in terms of the healing of our world. And yet, if we have leaders like that, that's certainly not going to help anything, and it will hurt things. So that's really too bad.
She's acting like a kindergartner with her little tantrums and such. Come on, grow up, be the big girl you're supposed to be. But
and like you said, keep uniting, keep bringing people together, giving us what we need in these very challenging times. So, yeah.
Oh, that they are. That they are.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, hey, I need to get my hair done. I can't. It's critical to me.
We have to learn to be nicer to one another. That's what this is supposed to be about.
Well,
you know, it's a time when we're working at enhancing the lives and livelihoods of others. You can put money out there to help them, and those that need it, that's wonderful. Those that don't deserve it, forget it. But we're all watching the balls up in the air, and some of them are coming down, hitting us in the head. Mm-hmm. Not good.
Yes, right. That's right. We don't know what's coming, but that's why we have Jeff Harman on the show with us.
Yes.
And by the way, everybody, make sure you go to our Facebook page, Supernatural Girls on Facebook. We've got some terrific paranormal stories for you there. Take a look at them. Be sure to like and follow us, as well as on Twitter, so that you can keep up with everything that's coming. Now, I also want to mention, this is very important, covert disclosure. Remember him? We talked about covert disclosure, remember, a long time ago, about a year ago. He will not come on the show live, but what he will do is he will answer questions that we give him and then send them back in an audio format so we can play those answers on the air. Well,
wonderful.
He kind of disappeared for a while.
Yes, he did.
He popped his head up and said, guess what? I'm ready to answer those questions. So we are hoping to get you those answers, and we asked him probably 50 different questions about all kinds of paranormal things, and this guy seems to have some really great inside information, and we can't wait to get it in front of you. So we'll let you know. I think it's going to be happening possibly the second week in June. We'll see how fast he can get us those answers, but that's a very exciting thing. And we also heard from Captain Kramer. He surfaced. Apparently, the night of the show, he was called away on something super secret that he can't share, but he apologized. He really wanted to be able to talk to our audience, so we're going to book him for another time, and he can tell us more about what he knows. Again, more inside information. So we can't wait for Captain Kramer to come back, and certainly covert disclosure. Oh, my God, I'm so excited about him coming onto the show, at least with those audio answers. This is going to be great. So make sure that you're following us on Facebook so you know when these folks are coming on, and on Twitter as well. So tonight we have got a great astrologer, not just a good astrologer,
yes, we do.
A great, great astrologer. And his name is Jeff Harman. He has 45 years of experience. He's a master of classical, Vedic, and Kabbalistic astrology. And he also draws from many other traditions of spiritual knowledge for clearing people and property of unwanted energies. And he's a consultant for paranormal investigation, so we're putting him on the list here. Jeff specializes also in electional astrology and all kinds of other things. He can talk to you about the best times, most auspicious times for weddings, surgery, releasing your product, best times to sign a contract, best times to travel. So we've got a whole wealth of knowledge here with Jeff. Now, he's worked with many aspects of the entertainment industry, and he's based in California now, and he's available worldwide by phone and internet conferencing. We'll be sure to tell you how to get a hold of Jeff if you want your own reading. So, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, we're excited.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, and I've known Patricia for years.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
The good old Tucson cactus ground.
Yes, I love that town, Tucson.
That's great. Well, we've got so much going on in the world today, and here you are with such a wealth of expertise, Jeff. I'm not even sure where to start. Do you want to start with the COVID experience? Because I know we were talking about that here.
Yes, we were talking about that before the show,
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the COVID, as I was telling you before we went online here on the air, I have been talking about this time period for probably the last 15 years. And I remember I was with George Norrie probably 2010, and everyone was so concerned about the Mayan calendar. If you remember, people were buying $1 million holes in the ground to hide from Nibiru and all that, and then ammunition and food. And I said, I can't come up with anything that shows the Mayan calendar is going to end the world. Not that I think it's going to end now either, but I said this is the time. And the reason I said that is because Saturn and Pluto go into hard aspects at regular intervals. Saturn and Pluto conjoin. That's called a conjunction, about every 35 to 38 years. It's not exact. And just to give you an example, 9/11 happened on the Saturn-Pluto opposition. The Saturn-Pluto square brought us the crash of the banks in 2008 and 2009. And guess what just happened? The Saturn-Pluto conjunction, when January 12th of this year. What made this one so bizarre is in Vedic astrology, there's something known as a Kalasarpa yoga, which is a kind of a strange term that means all the planets are in between the moon's north and south nodes, and that's where eclipses happen. Anyone who's been around astronomy or astrology knows that the eclipses are when the sun and the moon and the earth align. So you can have a new moon eclipse or you can have a full moon eclipse. So those mathematical points go around the earth about every 18 years. And what's fascinating is they also were in, and still are, one of them, in lunar mansions that were exceedingly toxic. And every time it joins up, like for instance, AIDS came out on this, SARS came out on this, JFK was killed on this. There was also the pandemic in 1917. There was other issues during Vietnam, the Vietnam War, where they line up about every 18 and a half years. What made this one such a global event was it coincided with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. The North Node was in a strange lunar mansion called Arudra. Now, some people pronounce that Ardra. And the South Node, which is called the Tail of the Dragon, was in Mula, and it still is. But I said this is going to start to crack right about the end of April, and it has. Ever since the end of April, we've been noticing all the states are kind of in dissension. Some are going back online, some are partially going back online. Well, here's the good news. All the planets start, well, not all, but Mercury and the Moon will break this Kalasarpa yoga where all the planets are in between the North and South node. When? Between the 25th, which is literally in 5 days from now. Today is the 20th of May. So right between the late on the 25th through about the 28th, we have the Moon and Mercury breaking this, and you're going to see people really start to rebel. And that coincides also with summer. You know, you're just not going to keep people sitting in the house with a mask wrapped in cellophane. So people are really going to get, I think, very rebellious and really push. And we're seeing this already. Here's the other good news. Even though, and I don't mean to be a smart aleck, but Lord Commander Fauci thinks it's going to come back. If the astrology is right, I think the south node that is in that lunar mansion called Mula is going to vacate right about September 20th. Which means if it comes back, it's not going to come back anything like this. And if it does, I think people are going to really, really not take it. I have a lot of clients who are in the medical business. Some of them are doctors and administrators. And I can just tell you what they're telling me. And they're saying the numbers don't match the predictions. What the officials have said, the hospitals are largely empty because people are afraid to go in them. And then the other part is they get $3,000 for a flu death. They get, I think, $13,000 for a COVID-19 marked death, and they get $38,000 if someone dies when they were on a ventilator. So this is the business of the pandemic. And we're seeing the same thing in all parts of the country. You know, again, this is not me saying it. I'm hearing this from medical professionals and doctors who are saying this, and and of course it's been all over the news too. So I really think.
Jeff, can you just tell me? I don't mean to interrupt, but I was just curious.
No,
who pays them when you talk about the different levels of payment for flu, COVID, and then COVID on a ventilator? Where do they get that money from?
That's a really good question. I think it's the state or the government makes a payment due to the pandemic. It's something that the hospital receives, and it could be through insurance. That is something I'm not qualified to answer. I don't know who's paying them, but I do know one of my clients told me that one hospital was 11,000 employees. That's not patients, that's employees. It's a very big operation. Another one was up on the East Coast, very big operation. Same thing I'm hearing. I've heard the same thing out here. And of course, the two famous doctors who had their short-lived experience on the internet on Facebook up in Bakersfield were literally polled. So there's clearly forces that are trying to keep this. And the other thing I had warned about for years is the Saturn-Pluto conjunction always brings a transformation and kind of a war between freedom and fascism. And boy, can we say that's not happening right now?
In
spades, exactly,
unfortunately.
Yes, it is.
It's so accurate. It's creepy. And the interesting thing is, too, on the political side, if the astrology is right, and it usually is if I'm reading it right, we have Venus retrograde right now. And what that means, Venus only goes retrograde every couple of years, but this is a very special one because this is called the inferior retrogradation, which means it's happening between the Earth and the Sun. And the ancients referred to this as Lucifer falling. Or they also said it was the Quetzalcoatl myth, where the people in power commit acts that are very problematic or egregious or not positive, and that is the metaphor of Venus going retrograde and then joining the Sun, which is really when it lines up between the Earth and the Sun. And we're in a very critical time right now. And what are we hearing on the news? We're hearing all this stuff coming out about the Obama administration, Brenner, Clapper, Comey, all this stuff. And I've been saying this for the last year, that there's a certain mole underneath Washington that's been tunneling away, and his name might be Durham. And I think it's going to come out. I think we're going to see a year, particularly as we get into fall, right around July through August and September, we're probably going to see some of the most unprecedented events in U.S. political history. And it really looks like Trump is going to get in again. So for those that love him, they're going to be happy, and those that hate him, they're going to be mad as hell. And they're just going to have to take it because it looks like he's going to win.
Well, yes, I've heard that before.
For us right now, I've been saying that all along. I think it's necessary for him to be in to get this taken care of. I know a lot of people don't like him, but we've had better times this last couple of years than we've had for a long time. So just keep my fingers crossed that we go with it.
What's sad, and this fits the astrology, and I'm not being conspiratorial here, but I think we're already in a war. It's a different kind of war.
I agree.
And this is a war of infiltration that has been going on in this country. And it's sad because a lot of people see it as Republican and Democrat. I see it as those who are bought and paid for and those who are trying to keep the communistic regimes out. And they're using, and I don't want to mention any particular ilks here because I don't want to get sued here on the air, but the astrology shows that we have undercurrents going on right now, and I really think that they've been going on for a long time. And it's like Solomon's demons. If you remember the picture of Solomon and the demons, the demons dance to the money. And this is what's been happening. We have had powerful forces undermining this country In fact, Hitler did the same thing in the Second World War. He sent all these people out, and they would go as tourists, the SS would, and they'd go into Holland, they'd go into Poland, they'd go into France, and they knew all the infrastructures. The same thing has been going on here in the U.S., I think for a lot longer than we dare be aware of, and that is there's been several, let's just say, factions who have been working, and this is much more alarming than not. There's a reason that we did the military buildup we did. See, China knows they can't beat us in an iron war. They know that. But it's interesting, the infiltration and the financial manipulation, all that is really what's going on right now. And I hear that there is some very dangerous and powerful things happening right now. And it always makes me wonder how these people in public office can get these meager salaries, of like $50 to $300. The president makes $300,000 a year, and yet they all come out wax rich. It's like
I know
they sure do. Yeah.
What is it? Obama has, what is it, 80 million now? Gosh, that's a nice jump.
Yeah. You bet.
Jeff,
well, look at Nancy Neuroses. I call her Neuroses, not Pelosi. I shouldn't do that.
I love that. That's perfect. Yeah. I'll remember that.
But, it's amazing how wealthy these people become. And I think you've got so many who've got their fingers in the cookie jar. It's exceedingly hard to get evidence on them because the prosecutors are covering the prosecutors because nobody wants to get prosecuted. But I have a sneaking suspicion if the astrology's right, that ball of yarn is going to come undone, and there's going to be some serious stuff. We've been hearing this for a long time, but I actually think it's coming to fruition. The good news is, and this is the other one, we have a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. When? On the winter solstice of this year.
Ooh.
This is the one I've been talking about forever. And it's actually very positive because even though we've had this trauma and never before, I have clients in the jungle, like shamans. They're telling me they can't get down the Amazon River because the shuttles have been shut down. This is in the middle of the Amazon. This is how powerful this pandemic has been.
Wow.
Incredible.
I've got clients in the mountains off in India that call me at times, and they're all saying, we're shut down. We can't get anywhere. We can go into the village by foot, but we can't, things are just locked. And by the way, speaking of that, I hear there's a little trouble brewing between India and China right now on the borders. Not that anything has happened, but there seems to be a lot of stuff going on. This is a dramatic year. This is a year of great power and change. And the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction that happens on the winter solstice is very special. In the antediluvian times, I'm talking thousands of years ago, there's a couple of texts. One was believed to have been given to Adam and Eve when the incarnate of the souls came here, and this is called the Sefer Ratziel, which means the book of the Archangel Ratziel. And there's also what they call Enoch or Enochian books on astrology, and they had talked about the flood of Noah coming, which it did, and these were on the Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions. So every 1,000 years, you get what we call a great conjunction. And then every 200 and approximately 40 years, it's not exact but close, you have, because the Gregorian calendar and our yearly calendar, that's why we have leap years, it's not exact, but it's close. So every 240 years, we have what we call a submutation conjunction. Well, the last one we had was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in the 1700s. Now we got the next one coming. This is the beginning of a high-tech revolution unlike I think we've ever seen in any recorded history, at least. And I think we're going to see life become like the Jetsons in the next decade. I really do. I think we're going to see advancements on every front. I think there's been technology suppressed, like Tesla definitely had free energy. And I think he figured out the dielectric breakdowns between atoms, and that's how he was able to do his perpetual motion machines and many other things that he had done. And I think that's been suppressed. Did you know that Donald Trump's uncle, John Trump, was the CIA agent who acquired all of Nikola Tesla's documents out of the New York hotel when Nikola Tesla died? Isn't that wild?
Very
for
strange,
heaven's
isn't
sakes.
it? Yes.
My goodness.
How about that? Mm-hmm. Just a coincidence, folks. Nothing to worry about.
Is there a connection? Is there a connection here when you talk about the new technology that would be very much like the Jetsons? Is there a connection between what's going on and what we're moving towards and disclosure?
Maybe. That's a really good one. I got to tell you, a story. Camille was in a film, and we went to the premiere, and we were at Fox Studios over on Pico Boulevard here. And we were just milling around. There was a big, premiere party. And we got in a conversation with a guy who happened to be a Marine. And he was a pretty interesting guy. He was definitely for real. And he is at the base just north of us here up by Oxnard. It's actually right south of Santa Barbara. And he says they have been studying these UFOs coming out. There's a huge cove right off the coast of Malibu. It's known as Point Doom. In fact, if you guys remember Larry Hageman and I Dream of Jeannie? Remember that scene when he finds the bottle and and the space guy? Mm-hmm. That's where that was filmed, right there. Okay, and oddly enough, that's where it was filmed. In fact, Gilligan's Island had a couple of scenes there, and a lot of car commercials all the time. I used to take my little boy out there swimming all the time, and it's a beautiful spot. It's known as Point Doom. In fact, Johnny Carson's house was right up on the hill, just down the street from there. And he says they're filming these UFOs that come in and out of there. He said the velocity that they achieve once they go above the water is nothing like anything. He says they are hitting, thousands of miles an hour by the time they're out of our atmosphere. They're just a streak. And this is documented with some very high-tech equipment. He was going on and on and on. And I've heard this not only from this guy firsthand, and I think he was a commander in that group. I can't remember what his rank was. But I've heard this for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And I think the government, I don't know that they're ever going to just walk out and say, but I think they're introducing the public to it slowly. I know Camille used to write for UFO magazine, and I got the opportunity to go to a lot of great meetings. And one of them was where we had heard a seminar. I went to a seminar where one of the commanders over at NATO he wrote a book about it. It's called Left at Eastgate. And he actually said that they saw a craft coming in and landing, and was within days of that time, all the nukes didn't work, and trucks were pulling in and taking the nukes that weren't supposed to be there in the first place out of that base. So I've heard a lot of stories from military people who said they've seen light orbs around installations and various technologies that we have, and afterwards they're replacing circuit boards. Things don't work. So it makes me always kind of feel good that I don't know if they're angels or aliens. They could be both. But something divine is keeping us insane humans from blowing each other off the face of the globe.
Definitely. Well, that's good. That's a good thing. But we also, have heard a lot about this PR campaign that's been going on, changing UFOs to UAPs. There's a whole introduction of this is normal, and it's never really been done before. This has been brought out over the last couple of years. So we are watching that closely, and we've certainly heard from our guests that are involved with that PR campaign. So
I think they're moving in that direction.
I was wondering if it lines up astrologically along with all of these other technologies we're going to have access to.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I mean, remember 20, 30 years ago, you were just dreaming it was swamp gas from Venus, remember? Now it's now they're changing the names to a UA, what was that, a UA or something like that?
UAP. Yeah.
UAP, right.
Unidentified aerial phenomenon is what they're calling it.
There we go.
Now.
We're moving up the ladder a little bit. Well, I'll tell you, I was around with the Phoenix Lights analysis. I actually was present when Jim Delatoso, Dr. Swimmer, and so many others had worked on the footage analysis. In fact, I think that was in 1996 or 97. And I remember I was over at Village Labs in Phoenix with Jim Delatoso and all these different scientists. And even though they try to discredit Jim, he actually, in my opinion, really proved that footage not only was real, but that really happened. So many people saw that. It was. I've had vehicles shut down. In 1970, I think it was about 76, I was on a motorcycle coming home from a girlfriend's house late at night, and I had my motorcycle completely shut off, and I came to a stop. Of course, back then everybody smoked, so I had my Bic lighter, and I looked, and literally the battery was completely dead. So I pushed it. That's way up in the North Woods. I pushed it down to a friend's house and got him out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock. And he says, yeah, you can keep it here, and he gave me a ride home. We actually arced the battery. It was completely dead. And he's the one who noticed this triangular-shaped craft pulsing up above the trees in the distance. And I used to track those things back in the 70s. I actually made maps. And, we never knew if they were military or UFOs, but there's a lot of stuff going on this planet. I actually I work with treasure hunters sometimes with astrology, and I was up in Pahrump, Nevada. We were just north of there, and I walked up to the top. I climbed up to the top of this mountain, and all of a sudden I saw these crafts coming in, and then it was like this lake bed. And I said to him, are we close to Area 51? He said, oh, yeah, that's it, right over there, about 30 miles from here. And I could see all these crafts coming in, and there's no question. There's some pretty bizarre stuff going on. It may be more like Men in Black than we know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's certainly a lot of things going on, a lot of things that are showing up in the skies, coming through portals, tremendous amount of sightings of UFOs as well as all kinds of strange cryptids. And it just...
You got it.
It seems to be that the veil is very, very thin right now, and things are coming through however they want.
It's way overdue. Patricia PK, you may remember in Tucson, there just north of Tucson, there's the 8 freeway, right? Heads over to San Diego. I was coming back from California. I think this is about 2010 or so, or 11 or something like that. And I was going between the 10 freeway and Gila Bend. There's a bypass. We always call it the Phoenix bypass. And it was late at night, and I'm pulling a film rig at that time, and it's a small motion picture company. And I could not believe my eyes. I saw these huge, like pillars in the sky of light. And I actually have pictures of them. And I said, what the heck is that? At first I thought, okay, I know it's late, I'm getting tired. So then I noticed as I was making corners that these things kept showing up, and they were moving. And they were huge. I just couldn't believe my eyes. I've seen so many things, particularly in the Southwest, over the last 30, 40 years or longer. I just can't tell you how bizarre it all is, and some of it's really, really inexplicable.
And difficult, I think, to even describe. But let me ask you a question, Jeff, because you have worked with people that have basically unwanted energies around them, and you help get rid of them. Now, when you look at somebody's astrological chart, how do you determine that they have this unwanted energy?
Great question. I use a number of different techniques. The first one I always like to start with, if I have it, and that is someone's birth chart. Vedic astrology uses some really interesting techniques. Many people will find their sun signs and their whole chart shifts by about 24 degrees because it's using a sidereal zodiac, whereas the tropical Your sun sign may be different. It's 24 degrees difference. So what I do is I look at the cycles in Vedic astrology as well as in tropical. And I often, in fact, I was hired by some remote viewing groups. I still work with them, where we find that there are certain cycles each of us all will go through where we have ebbs and flows throughout our life, and Saturn is certainly a huge element. The other technique that I look at the cycles first. I look at progressions and transits and what we call primary directions and the doshas in Vedic astrology. So I map that all out. But then I use another type of astrology called interrogation astrology. Now, in India, they call it prashna. In the West, a lot of people know it as horary. That's the Latinized term. But interrogation is what I like to call it because it's kind of what it is. And that was actually coined. It's exactly what it is. It's divinational. And that was actually coined by Rabbi Ibn Ezra. And a lot of the people who say astrology is the work of the devil and, oh, my God, it's bad, they ought to look at their Bibles because Rabbi Ibn Ezra lived in the 11th century. And he is the one who made many commentary on the Old Testament and on the Psalms. He's in the Bible. And he was one of the most prolific astrologers. And that's why I love the ancient astrology, because it had a tool set. So I use interrogate. Like if someone says, I've got entities possessing me, I will cast a chart based on their query to me. And then I will examine. The eastern horizon becomes the querent, meaning the person asking the question. And then you can examine whether it's the house that's possessed or it's them that's possessed. And you can see very accurately to what degree this might be. Is it elementals? Is it disincarnate souls? Could it be demonic spirits? It could be any one of those. It's usually the first two. Demonic spirits aren't usually the ones, but they can happen. You can get low-level demonics. And then once that happens, then you got to make a determination of what are we going to do about it. So then you get into the clearing mode, and then I use electional astrology. Electional astrology is picking an auspicious time to commence an event, whether it be, clearing a house, clearing a person. A lot of times I do this stuff remotely. I've had places that I've done, all over the world where, we can just astral project and do it remotely at a good time. And then I use very sacred geometric diagrams that I usually either email to people or I will, of course today it's all email, we used to mail them, and have them place them in the house. We've done this on new constructions too. One of the wonderful tools that I love to use is Vastu. Vastu is kind of the grandfather or maybe the original birth of Feng Shui. Feng Shui was more of a Chinese development. Vastu was very ancient. It's the science of balancing energies in a home, a business, or a property. And what I love about Vastu is it's more intricate because you can take the person's birth chart and balance that with the dwelling, whether it be an office, a home, a bedroom, a place of work, and you can really architecturally. I love working with architects and people on new construction because then we have the full freedom. We can sit there with a pencil and CAD on drawing on computers and really get all of the energies flowing right. Whereas, on existing buildings, you can do a lot too, just like you can in Feng Shui, but it's never as effective as if you can get it all right to begin with. And this gets right down to doorways, windows, the direction you sleep, and all that. So all this comes into play whether you're clearing someone, because I often find clearing people, it's kind of like sweeping out the shoreline at low tide. You want to make sure when high tide comes, it just doesn't come right back. So you want to look at what's causing it. Is it karmic stuff, cycles in the astrology? Is it the dwelling? Also, location astrology is amazing. That's where you take your birth chart, and remember, Patricia, we did that, and you can look at the energies you're living on. Every individual has their own personal astrology or ley lines where they live, and it's especially critical when you live where you weren't born. You see, in other words, if you now have moved somewhere else, and people always say to me, where's the best place to live? And I go, wow, that's a big one, because you got a lot of best places with many different kinds of energies. It's like a menu that's exceedingly complex, and because you can get places that are really good for pleasure, for notoriety, for intellectualism, for spirituality. You can also get some places that are pretty nasty too, and so that's why it's really. Like I had one doctor who lived on a Mars-Neptune line and was attempted, someone tried to kill this person. And I said, you're living in the Twilight Zone. And the person said to me, it's been like that ever since I moved here. I said, well, you're on a Mars-Neptune line. And I said, that's the Twilight Zone. I said,
wow.
you need to really be aware. I had another psychiatrist. This is really a cool story. He came to me and he says, Jeff, he says, what the heck is going on? He says, I moved from this part of the country to this part of the country. And he says, I'm on meds. He said, I'm losing my mind. I said, well, you moved right on a Moon-Pluto line. And he says, well, what's that all about? So I gave him the description, and I actually printed it out for him. He goes, oh, my God. He goes, the textbook. He says, it's exactly what I'm going through all the time. He says, what am I going to do? He says, my wife loves the house. And that was the cool thing. It was good for his wife. It was good for his kids. It just wasn't good for him.
Bad for him.
And this is what you run into with multiple people. Everybody's different. And he said, well, what do I do? I said, because he had a practice and everything, and a really rational guy, wonderful person. And I said, the best I can tell you is know this energy and look at the positive sides of it. He said, I get this. He says, now I understand. And the psychology was when we look at the world, there's nothing good or bad necessarily, even though a lot of things are good and a lot of things are bad. But it's how we react to it. So he got it. He says, I get this. And he threw the meds in the garbage can, and he's been doing fine ever since, even though he says, I have to contend with this. But it changes your outlook when you have to be. Like I just had some horribly intense, and still have, progressions and transits. And I love to ride a motorcycle, and I've been not taking it much at all because I knew when those transits and progressions were hot, I don't want to become a California road statistic. So, again, you can – and I also found there was a lot of positive things about it. I was able to get a lot of things done that weren't very pleasant to do, but it was actually a great usage of the energy. So it's always like that. Everyone has this kaleidoscope of – continuous cycles. That's the blessing of life. And there's, the past don't equal the future. It always
right.
is a new day.
Yes, thank goodness for that. Well, we're going to take a very short break here, and we're going to come back and continue this conversation. I also want to know more about the paranormal investigations you've been involved with and how you've used your astrological knowledge to determine what's going on there. So everybody stay tuned. You are listening to Supernatural Girls Radio, and we will be right back.
Pure essential oils, specialized minerals, and a revolutionary anti-aging technology. Astridian combines the best of all scientifically proven ingredients in easy-to-use creams, lotions, and concentrated serums. Astridian's advanced line of products take your skin to a new level of being healthy and beautiful. We offer a variety of collections that address all your skin concerns. The Essential Anti-Aging Series treats and moisturizes your skin for a long-lasting, younger look. The Multivitamin Series promotes healthy skin with high-quality vitamins and minerals. The Sports Series restores skin from cellular damage and stress. Astridian also offers a revitalizing solution for hair and a professional series for doctors and medical spas. Visit astridian.love today and begin your new journey to healthy, beautiful, youthful skin. Astridian, beyond your expectations.
There are a lot of psychics out there. How do you decide which one is right for you? You look for someone who empowers you, who's practical and spiritually connected, who says, here are your opportunities, here are your challenges, and here's a way to deal with them, and then gives you your own toolbox to make your life everything you want it to be. Hi, I'm Corby Mitleid, and that's how I work with you. As a certified professional tarot reader, I've helped thousands of people for over 40 years through my toolbox. Cards, past life retrieval, numerology, spirit guide conferences, and mediumship. Whether it's career, relationships, finances, or your spiritual road, together we can replace your confusion with clarity. And you'll probably find a little laughter along the way. Visit me at CorbyMitleid.com to find out how to cross your bridge from fear to fearlessness and fly. And tell me you found me at Supernatural Girls for a special gift with your reading. Corby Mitleid, the practical psychic for catching your tomorrows today. Find me at CorbyMitleid.com. That's CorbyMitleid.com.
Your property tax bill. Have you seen it lately? It's frightening. Your property taxes are going up while your home value is going down. It's time to fight back and win. For the real truth about the property tax system, get attorney Pat Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Attorney Quintilian answers all your questions and gives you the facts you need to fight a property tax bill that is spiraling out of control. You'll also read about what happens to property owners who don't check their property records, only to find out too late they're taxed on square footage, fixtures, and even buildings that they don't own. Is this happening to you? Learn your rights. Buy attorney Pat Quintilian's book today. Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Available on Amazon.com.
Are you frustrated with endless mantras, affirmations, and processes that promise to align your life with your dreams, only to find yourself years later in the same space where you began? Do you feel like you must be doing something wrong because nothing seems to be working? Don't you just wish that someone could shift your consciousness for you and your life could align with your desires without all the effort? Well, your wish is about to come true. Hi, I'm Carrie Cannon, and I have a gift that allows me to align the consciousness of others to be in harmony with their dreams. The best part is, it requires no particular effort on your part. Upon listening to a consciousness alignment, people have reported instant energy shifts, financial windfalls, soulmate connections, healed relationships, physical healings, and more. To gain access to a free trial offer for my entire Manifesting Miracles library of consciousness alignments, go to commandmiracles.com now for details. Again, that's commandmiracles.com for information about our free trial offer. That's commandmiracles.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girls Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with my co-host, PK, and a great astrologer. Jeff Harman is with us. And, Jeff, we were going to talk about your experiences with astrology and the paranormal. How many investigations have you been involved with?
Quite a few. You know, it's hard to recall them all. I have a whole file of stuff that actually started as far back as the 80s. I'll tell you my very first paranormal experience. I was a little kid. My mother was an amazing lady. She was, I really miss her. She died so young. She was only 47 years old. She died in the 80s. No. Yeah, very young. And she's the one who originally taught me my first introduction to astrology. It was about 1975. I had just bought a cop car, a retired cop car. It was like the Blues Brothers. And I was going out with different girls, and she would peg my girlfriends to the T. And I said, what are you doing? I said, how do you know that? And she'd go, well, I got her chart. I'm like, come on. I said, this astrology stuff, does it really work? She goes, oh, yeah. She goes, before you debunk it, try it. And that's what got me started. But back when I was a kid, And then from there, she passed away in the 80s, and I got her library. I was always involved in studying paranormal things, and it started when I was a little kid. I had 2 guinea pigs, and my brothers and I slept up on the 3rd floor of our house. And I had this dream one night that my little guinea pig Patty had died and was laying exactly on her side. And I had this old wooden, cage with the chicken wire or whatever that is, the small square wire. And I remembered it vividly, and all of a sudden, boom, I woke up, and I jumped out of bed, and I ran down the stairs, ran out into the yard, opened up the cage, and it was exactly how I had she was laying precisely the way I saw. So, I was just a little kid, I'm crying, and Mom said, don't worry, we'll give it a burial and pray and all that, and which we did. And I told her about it, and she says, you astro-traveled. And my mom was always really such a wonderful lady. I just had such a closeness to her soul. She was always a firstborn, and I think there's a real connection between the mother and the firstborn. There's a very good soul root connection. In fact, Jaimini astrology shows that in Vedic astrology. It actually shows you where your soul root comes from. And she had a very similar soul root to mine. And I always felt that with her. Like, we're connected more than just mother and son. We're connected in a very special way. And long story short, that's kind of when it started for me. And I didn't really, astrology was really an adjunct to that. There's an old story about the eagle and the lark. And the eagle is psychic intuition and getting close to the divine. The astrology is the eagle, and the little lark said to the eagle, if you could get me on your back, get me up close to God, I could bridge the balance. And that's when it really started coming together for me, was when I started seeing how this matrix, I always say forget Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus, this is really the real matrix of the soul. And I think the earth is like a soul cauldron. I really do. That's why the earth doesn't end. Yes, we have wars and bad stuff, but there's so many souls going here, not only alive, but also in the astral planes. And I started getting interested in this stuff in the 80s. And then as I started applying some of this stuff, I started getting into clearing and studying and reading about it. And there's many different techniques. It was the ancient Egyptian, Chaldean, and Kabbalistic stuff, as well as some of the Vedantic, that all just clicked for me. And I found that doing that stuff was really powerful. And so I've, since probably the last 30 years or so, I've really been involved in clearing houses, clearing people, properties, and also I've had the blessings of investigating some really interesting paranormal events, particularly in ufology. George, you remember George Parks, PK?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
no,
George just passed away here about, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, and George was a wonderful man. He actually ran the Arizona ufology, the MUFON. Right. And, of course, Roger Shear was involved, too. And they actually had me do a whole study on a bunch of paranormal events connected with ufology and other paranormal stuff. And we were looking at, does astrology correlate? It does, not only in the mundane astrology, which is what's in the sky, but also that in play with each individual. So I've really found interrogation astrology is fun. Probably some of the more bizarre cases that I've been involved with have been people who've had some really heavy entities on them. I had one a yogi friend of mine from India. I used to teach at Yogi Bhajan's yoga studio over in it's called Yoga West. It's still there in West LA, and I don't know if you guys know who he was, but he was quite famous for helping a lot of people in education in the 60s. I think he came over here in the 50s. He was quite old. And Chakrapani was another one that I worked with, and I really enjoyed him. And we had some great discussions about all this stuff. And the thing that I have found is there are yantras and certain sacred diagram, the ones that I find that are really powerful protecting people and entities are some of the secret cryptology that's actually encoded in sacred scripture like the Psalms. And this is all stuff that our fine religions have done a very poor job at transmitting to the human race. Rome pretty much threw that stuff out the window somewhere between the first
hiding
and third
it
century.
on purpose. Mm-hmm.
They have,
sure.
and they know about it. The ancient rabbis, too, were, some of this stuff's profound. And this is the ancient Kabbalah, because there's many factions of that. And that's the stuff I like to use. I had one recent event that comes to mind. I had an individual who had some boxes arrive from New York, and this was an unexpected one. I was sitting in the room, and all of a sudden something seized me right around the neck, and I went, this is weird. And even that person said, wow, I can feel it. It's heavy in here. And I said, did that chair by any chance just come from New York? And the person said, yes. And I said, there's something attached to it. And I really kind of got alarmed, and there's techniques that anyone can learn on banishing. And once you banish, then you have to also, and it's not simple. This one was really rough. I think it was a disincarnate soul that was attached, and a wicked one at that. And I actually had to use a method where you draw some very specific sacred geometry, and you literally psychically force it through it to another dimension, and then you burn it. You just, like on a piece of paper, you burn it. And it trapped it. And we noticed right off the bat, the place started clearing out, and I said, you got to get rid of that chair. I said, I don't want to, cost you money, but I said, that chair has got etheric energy on it that's just lingering like, it's like a Q-tip in a mud puddle. It just soaked it up. And we did. We got rid of it, and the whole place has been clear ever since. I've had stores where people have, there was one store, the psychics used to go in there and say, oh, my God, this place is really weird. And I did a remote clearing on it. I'm remembering some of the more recent ones. And I actually found it was somebody who OD'd on some really nasty stuff. I think it was heroin or morphine or something like that. And just was really, didn't even know they were gone. And some of these are really obstreperous souls. And there's no way to get rational with them because they're not rational. They get trapped in psychonoetic dimensions, and I literally had to do the same thing. And again, the store owner said, wow, the place really cleared up, and everything's better now, and everybody likes it in here.
Now, Jeff, how can people get a hold of you if they feel that they, number one, just want a reading with you, or if they have something going on in their house or with them personally that needs to be cleared? How do they find you?
Oh, the easier way, Jeff@JeffHarman.com, and that's HARMAN.com. So it's just my first name, Jeff, and then JeffHarman.com. Jeff@JeffHarman.
Excellent. Now, when somebody comes to you for a basic reading, just say, I've never done this before, I'd like to have you take a look at my chart. How do you choose which type of astrology to use? You have so many to choose from.
Well, you use them all I have a whole procedure that I've developed over the years. I've had many, many teachers, and some of them were wonderful and some of them were not. But, I think everyone, when they do something, they spiral in and they figure out what works. So I have a whole sheet that I make out on every client that starts with all their Vedic astrology, their Jaimini astrology, and their cycles and doshas. And then I look at their progressions and transits and directions, and then, of course, I take a very close look at, does this person live where they were born, or have they moved somewhere else? And then I look at their location astrology based on that. And then I have a lot of things I look at Kabbalistically and Vedantically, and I mark all this down. I spend 30, 40 minutes before I ever get on the phone with a client. So it's a lot of work, but I love today because now we have the Internet. So it used to be people would come to my office in Beverly Hills, and of course, Patricia, you came to my house over in Tucson. And,
that's right.
People would walk out with a cassette tape and a pile of papers. Today, I have people pulling over on the side of the road. I give them a code on their iPhone or their Droid, and they log right in, and I can record a video of the entire session where they see their charts, they see their maps, they see that I can point and show them, look, you're going to hit this period here, this period's coming up here, or you got this transit coming through here, and they go, wow, this is so cool because I can see, and then they get to watch it over and over again. Plus, I send them also an MP3. So the internet has just been awesome for astrology.
It's phenomenal. My goodness.
Yeah, it is.
And you offer so much, which is fabulous.
Well,
what a great gift that they receive.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you. Well, I really take it seriously because this is people's lives. And, I'm not like most astrologers. Most astrologers will tell you, oh, you're a Pisces, or, you're an Aries or a Libra. And one of the first things I go through with people, and this is why I love the internet, because people see that I'm literally making a movie of their session. They can see their soul is created hundreds of dimensions above the firmaments, the heavens, or if you want to say the astrology. And we are. In fact, that the ancient models, both India, Chaldea, Greek, all the medieval models knew the human souls are created far, far above astrology. So what is astrology? Well, we're spiritual beings incarnate having a physical experience. So I always go out of my way to point that out because here's proof of that. In Vedic astrology, you're probably one sun sign, and in tropical astrology, you're probably another. And if you're not, your rising signs and your moon are very likely to be different. All the planets shift. So that proves right there, you're not your astrology. And this is modern love, light, and clueless programming that's come in the last 100 years. And I find when you view it that way, it's more empowering. Astrology doesn't predict the future. It influences it. Therefore, it seems like it does. See, like interrogation astrology, I get this all the time. People call me up all the time in business. They're in lawsuits or they're in some relational issue, and I cast charts called interrogations because then you really get specificity. Or the other one I get all the time is, the estates. Well, my sister's taking it, or my brother's doing, or the uncle's taking this, and she grabbed the estate, or whatever. So I oftentimes have like several people involved in these questions in lawsuits or contentions. Well, interrogation astrology shows, like I'll say to someone, I bet this person really dislikes you, and this one loves you. Well, how'd you know? Well, because the ancient dignities in astrology allow you to see. It's like an alphabet. You just look at it. And this is the stuff the kings and the queens use with their court astrologers. And back then, if you were wrong, you didn't get paid. You lost your head. So, today, they just don't call you anymore. But
right.
Back then,
what about gems, though, Jeff? I see that you also work with gems for people.
I'm glad you mentioned
which ones to wear.
I do, and that is a huge thing I do for people that protects them spiritually. There are certain gemstones you should wear, and there's certain ones you shouldn't. And I have found, like I've had people, I just did a really amazing lady. She runs a clinic over in Australia, and she's got a whole team of psychics. They're medical intuitives. And I got her and a few other ones, these talismans that I made with certain gemstones. And they said, we got to take them off. We can't read each other. I said, I know. They're really cool. So I do a lot of, I prescribe gemstones using Vedic planetary gemology, which is a lot different than your birthstone. See, so you have dashas and cycles that you're in. So there's certain stones you can wear all your life. There's other stones you only wear at certain times in your life. And there's certain stones you should avoid, like the plague. And stones that may be good for me may not be good for you. Everyone's different.
So you can prescribe that and say to them, use this stone, and it'll shift the energy for you to a better place?
It really does. And I got to tell you, I've been doing this for about 35 years, and I have had so many clients tell me, wow, I had the money, I didn't know if it would work. And then they'd say, I can really feel it. I said, I know, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Back, I had one of my teachers from India, he's long gone now, he said to me, he says, Jeff, you must wear this stone. And I said, really? He says, yeah, just put it in your hand and hold it. And I could feel it immediately. It was like, whoa, I can feel this. See, the secrets, most of the gemstones out there are either heat-treated, irradiated, or they're synthetic, or they've been altered. And they're doing a lot of slick stuff right now. They're using lasers. They'll hit them with epoxies and resins. They will literally put them in nuclear chambers and bombard them. The most ubiquitous one is heat treating. And people say to me, yeah, but I got this ruby from my grandmother's estate. Guess what, folks? They've been heat treating gemstones for hundreds of years. Why would they do that? Because it darkens the color, lessens the inclusion. So my specialty is to find untreated gemstones. And I used to go to the GJX booth in Tucson for years, and all these guys come in, it's totally natural, and I go, no, it's not. You heat treated, and I can see it.
Yeah, right.
And then they call up the miner and they go, oh, you're right, they heat treated at the mine. I said, I know, I can see it, and I can feel it. If anyone gets trained under a microscope, I had the blessing of studying with a really amazing guy. In fact, I still work with his wife. She's quite on in years now, but he was one of the leading experts in gem treatment. And he just passed away a few years ago. And I actually made a video about it with him. I should edit that someday. But gemstones are amazing. They really are. And I found, like I've had children. I had a really interesting thing recently. This poor boy, what a great kid. His father and mother called me up and said, we're really worried because the psychiatrist wants to do this and do that. And I'm like, okay, I can't give you medical advice. And they said, well, can you see anything in his chart why he's having such an incredibly difficult psychological time? He had a progression, a once-in-a-lifetime progression, that was so intense. I said, you're at the peak of it. I said, if you can get through this time period, which was about 8 months, and I said it's likely to increase during this time, I said, he's going to come out of the woods. Because they wanted to medicate this poor kid to death. And I'm not saying medications don't work sometimes, but we all know the story on that one. Not good. So, medicine has its place. But so the parents, on their own volition, said, we got it. And they were astounded at how accurate the descriptors of astrology showed what their child was going through. And I also said there's another stone we could put on him, and they did. They said they felt such a shift, and then after that period, totally cleared up. It slowly dissipated, just like the chart said. He's now functional, back in school, not on medication, and doing well. So every individual is different, and everyone is unique. I myself have seen, throughout my life, progressions. Primary directions are really amazing. That's a fancy word for when you're born, the longitude and latitude we come out of mom at is where the birth chart is cast. Well, the primary motion is the rotation of the earth. That's what's called primary motion. And the ancients knew that each day of primary motion of the earth equaled a year of progressions in life. So you have to look at the movement of all the planets at the what we call ascensional rate of the earth at the latitude you were born. It's different. If you're at the poles, the earth appears to move very slowly, right? If you're at the equator or at a southern latitude, even though the earth is larger in circumference than at the pole, it's actually moving quite a bit faster. So it's really amazing. And these people were figuring this stuff out thousands of years ago. And it's the old astrology is not good because it's old. It's good because it was astronomy applied to the soul. And when you look at that in terms of gem prescriptions and cycles in your life, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it sounds extremely powerful.
It is. It's pretty amazing.
Jeff, do you make a talisman for someone by what they require, or do you?
Absolutely. What I do Yep, I actually have a shop that I've been working in for years, and I do some of the polishing and setting here. What I do is I actually cast the metals at a good astrological time, so it's like alchemy. And then I will set the stone at a good astrological time to the individual. For instance, if I'm setting a yellow sapphire, what rules yellow sapphire? Jupiter. In fact, you can go on my website and you can see all these gemstones. Ruby rules the sun. See, Mercury is for emerald. And you strengthen Venus with diamond or white sapphire. You strengthen Mars with red coral. You strengthen Jupiter with yellow sapphire. Saturn is strengthened by blue sapphire and amethyst. See, and then you have the moon's north and south node, Rahu and Ketu, in Vedic astrology, and they take specific stones like crystal beryl cat's eye for Ketu, and you have hessonite for Rahu, and profound effects on these are really, really amazing. I wear my stones 24/7. The only time I ever take them off is if I ever go in the ocean or something like a river where I'm worried about losing them. But I love pendants because they hang right at the heart chakra. And, of course, that's where your blood, your lymph, your oxygenation of your blood are all going on with the heart and the lungs and the flow of the lymph nodes. So it's very powerful. And I also do a lot of rings. Each finger, you can see this all on my website, each finger has a specific correspondence. Like the index finger is Jupiter, the next finger is Saturn, the next finger is Venus, and then, of course, you got Mercury on the right hand. And the same thing follows on the order of the left. So it's very powerful to get the stone, and not only do I set it at a good time, but then I give people a specific cleansing procedure. So you cleanse the stone, meaning the ring or the pendant, at with spring water 3 times. You pass it above incense 3 times, which is fire and air, and then you pass it, water and air, and then you pass it above a flame, which is the fire. And then there's an angelic square that you place each gemstone on, and there's a prayer that you say. If anyone's ever heard of Dr. Emoto, he proved thoughts are literally things. Remember, he showed in Messages
of Water. He did all the water work, yes.
He did. And that was a gift to paranormal researchers because that proves that psychic work, intuition, is real, because all the sacred thought forms look like sacred geometry of different types, and negativity always came out looking like gobbledygook. So when you charge a stone on an angelic square, it's like a tuning fork resonating with the angelic forces of that gemstone, and the mantra with your intentions really programs the stone. And profound. We've actually measured with Kirlian photography and other methods that it's very powerful when people charge it with a wonderful intention and prayer, and then wear it.
Now, Jeff, I'm getting a lot of texts coming in, and they want to know. They said, this sounds great, but it sounds expensive. What is the cost for something like this?
Oh, it's all over the place, and it can get very expensive. If you're going to get into really high-quality, untreated gemstones, it can be very expensive. However, there's substitute stones that I get for people, and there's also lower-end stones. Like you can get a really nice, untreated yellow sapphire as inexpensive as maybe $1,500, $1,800. I've seen some go for $30,000, $40,000. It depends. Like I just did a guy who's very wealthy, and I tried to talk him out of these rings. They were 22-carat, 38-carat yellow sapphires. He got 2 of them.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but this guy's wealthy, so he's got people opening his limo doors, and I said, you're going to dent this ring, but that's what he wanted, and that's what I made. And for the rest of us, I like to get. You want a minimum of 3 carats. 3 carat, like Edgar Casey, the psychic, said, when you start getting 4 carats and above, that's where it really gets powerful. But it really comes down to your budget. So I have a lot of people who say to me, geez, I don't have thousands and thousands of dollars, but I'll get them a Cavachon emerald. It may not be perfect, but it's still an emerald, and it's really got good energy. And then I'll set it for them in silver, or I'll do it in 18-karat gold. I get a lot of high rollers, that they've got money, and politicians. They know this stuff has energy, and people in business they know some of the they're willing to pay because they know it has a very powerful occult power on the aura.
Oh, for
it's
sure.
been known for
it
thousands
really does.
of years.
So here's another
Jeff,
question that is coming back about China, because you did mention something about how China was involved and that you were seeing it astrologically, and it was something pretty hidden. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that there's been some real, I don't want to be accused of xenophobia and all that, but I can tell you the astrology supports that there has been some very manipulative stuff going on. Of course, we've heard the Russia stuff for years and years now, but I think there has been an overt attempt, or I should say an undercurrent attempt, to coerce and use a lot of different tactics to, there's no secret. China's wanted world domination, and they have a long-term plan. They think long-term. they think in 50-year plans. So
right.
I'm not saying, all Chinese are bad people. There's a lot of great Chinese people, and I like a lot of them. But and that goes for every race. But I do think that there is some very powerful things. I think we're already in a secret war with them, if you want my opinion, because you look, George Carlin, the comedian, was right. He said, forget the politicians, you have owners. They own this place.
Yes.
And when you look into the old bankers who have been running this place pretty much since the late 1800s and really came on board when Wilson sold the country to the bankers, I mean, we know the Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express. And who is these bankers behind them who are printing trillions of dollars? Where's it coming from? And, who's got that kind of collateral stacked up in the back room in gold? Let's go call the debt. See, okay, let's cash in. It's never going to happen. So there's a lot going on that I've actually, I can't mention much, but I've actually got some clients who are really in very powerful positions in banking. So I get to hear and kind of cross-compare to what the astrology says. And I've even had people in the Federal Reserve that I've talked to, and it's so compartmentalized. It's so mysterious where all this money's coming from. Well, we know where it's coming from. It's way behind the scenes. You're never going to know their names. Everyone talks about the Rothschilds, the Bilderbergers, and all these different drop names, and they're probably not wrong. They're certainly involved. And there's different factions, which leads back to what the heck is really going on. And we know China was buying our debt. Okay?
Right.
And now all of a sudden, we have a new faction came in. His name's Donald Trump. Now, whether you hate Trump or like Trump wouldn't be drawing breath if the owners didn't want him in there, or at least the faction that's backing him. And I hear there's been secret attempts on his life that have been clearly thwarted. And he is, and we're seeing this right now. Again, this goes, you look at all these politicians who are kind of bought and paid for, and there's a reason that they favor certain countries over other countries and cover all this stuff that we're hearing about China. I think money talks, and it always, you look at all the world wars and conflicts, follow the money. And I think there was some very powerful things going on that are being uncovered right now in the last last few administrations, even though, and I think clearly, when you look at the power of the financial forces that were going on in all the manufacturing, everything was made in Southeast Asia, particularly China. Everything. We made nothing
Trump
here
did warn us about that, and he did say we need to stop this reliance on it, as well as other people did too. And
I had
but
one
now
banker.
Here we have this thing with the virus that we know came from China. And in terms of what you're seeing astrologically, I just want to go over this another time because it's such a big issue for everybody right now. do you see this coming to an end? So is it going to come to an end this year, next year, or is it always going to be with us? What do you see astrologically with this?
Well, I think this was a fire drill because this kind of an event could happen again, and in an even more serious way. I think this was probably manifest over there in China earlier than they said it was. If the astrology's right, this could have happened as early as late last fall into October. They kept the lid on it, and it got loose, and it's very mysterious that all those people were leaving Wuhan and coming over here and other places.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the numbers don't add up, at least from what I'm hearing from people, though I will say this, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely felt what the astrology showed, COVID or no COVID, this was a weird year. When the November through, I'd say February, I was really wiped out. And I don't have COVID. So even without this, and I know that these guys know astrology too, because I know I've talked to some folks that are really, they're very knowledgeable about this stuff. There's a reason George Washington and the rest of the Masonic Temple, if you look at Washington, D.C., it's an Egyptian temple. These people have been into the occult forever. And if you look at George Washington's actually in his Masonic apron laying the cornerstone of the foundation of the capital of this country at a certain time. So these boys were into ritual and spiritual and occult things. I'm not saying they're bad or good. I'm just saying they're very into the esoteric occult and don't think they're not now. And if there was ever a time someone would see this as a time that this could happen, it certainly was when it did. And you know, again, this is a different kind of war, and I really think that we're going to see China get hurt bad from this. And again, they're becoming very aggressive right now, like many people in the media have said, that General Keane has said it, and others I've heard say it, that they're getting very aggressive over there. The United States has built up the military here since Trump's been in drastically.
Yes.
You know, the United States has right now, they're about ready to go online with 14 aircraft carriers. When you look at China's got one. It's turbine and gas powered. We've got soon to be 14. We got 12 out there right now from what I hear. They're Northrop Grumman nuclear power stations. That's not just for propulsion. These boys are running lasers and particle beams. I mean, we got some sophisticated stuff. And I always say that's because the owners need to shore up their clearinghouse, which is the USD. And it all comes down to money. So I think we're seeing a major power shift and new direction in the world, which is what this Saturn-Pluto conjunction shows this year. The United States has an astrological chart called the U.S. Sibley chart, and that's kind of a nickname after Ebenezer Sibley, who was a Mason, who is purported to have recorded the time that they actually finished signing the Declaration of Independence. So a lot of folks use it as the birth chart of the U.S. There are other charts that I have too. Some astrologers say it's more accurate than the Sibley. I kind of like the Sibley. I think it works. And I can tell you the astrology of the United States is showing that if there was ever going to be a major shift in direction and power, it's certainly between now and 2022. The United States has a Pluto return 3 times in the year of 2022, 2 short years from now. Pluto, by primary direction, is coming across the midheaven of the United States, and more importantly, there's something called sati sate, which is a strange word for the 7.5-year transit of Saturn over the moon of the United States. That just began. When?
And what does
about
that
a
mean,
year and a half
Jeff,
ago.
in English? So
Profound.
that the way people listening can understand what is a possibility that could happen at that time.
Saturn is like a big capacitor. If anyone's familiar with capacitors, they store electricity, or like a big water tower where all the stuff that's going on. The tensions and all the things are stored. Well, when Saturn starts to transit the moon of an individual or a city or a person, or like in this case, the country, profound things change. And I've also got the communist Chinese chart, too, from when they started. And, of course, communistic Chinese started, I think it was in the 40s. I got it right here. I didn't have it up. I just thought of it when you told me. Let me see if I got it here. And this is what's really interesting. Yeah, here it is somewhere. I just saw it. I can tell you the U.S. chart in China, here it is, Communist China. That was actually formed in 1949, October 1st, in Biba, Xinjiang, China. I can't say all those words. But that is an interesting little chart, too, because I really think they're about to see a huge shift in 2022 at the same time, if the chart that I'm using is correct. They're shifting into a place where they're going to keep being very aggressive, and I really think the PowerPoints are going to shift. Again, follow the money. Look what the military has done. And the Obama administration, literally, from everything I've heard, gutted the military. He just gutted it. It was almost at a point where they could have walked in here.
Mm-hmm. Which is disgusting that happened.
So that when you're talking about the Saturn aspect for the United States, again, what specifically are we looking towards? You talk about PowerPoint shifting. In what way? Does that mean that we'll have to contend
the confluence
with one world
of
government,
all those events,
or what does that mean?
Well, I think this is what we're seeing right now, is a war between New World Order globalism, which is likely to be backed by the communist regimes, and in nationalism. This is what's going on. And I can tell you, you were mentioning Nancy Pelosi, who I affectionately referred to as Nancy Neuroses. She,
I love it.
Sorry, it blew up. Anyhow, the thing is, Nancy took the Speaker of the House right in Vedic astrology when she had a very powerful sun dasha. Well, guess what? I don't think she's going to be there coming next year. According to this chart, things don't look too good for her as we start getting into the latter part of this year into next. What does that tell you? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good.
What does that tell you? I think we could see a colossal shift in the parties in there. And again, for those who hate Trump, because I have to be careful. I'm in California. If I say anything positive about Trump, a swarm of Priuses surrounds my house and they throw bricks through the window.
Yeah, right. No tolerance there.
Yeah, don't feel bad.
Yes.
But yeah,
throw me
you
in
did
the
say that you
hole.
expect him to get back in, and I do too. I think he will.
Yeah.
Well, that's what this astrology shows. I actually said that in 2016 on a radio show, and the guy almost hung up the phone on me. He almost cut to commercials.
Start crying.
I've had friends that are upset with me because I've been saying this.
See, talk about Trump. Oh my God, you ought to see Donald Trump's Vedic astrology. Talk about spot on. This man, Donald Trump, was born hours after a Kalasarpa Yoga was broken. See, Kalasarpa Yogas are when all the planets are between the moon's north and south node. Literally, if Donald Trump would have been born 40 minutes earlier, he would have had a full Kalasarpa Yoga, and he would not have been president of the United States. He was born with a fixed star right on his ascendant that says a king going to his throne with a golden crown. Now look at his Trump Towers. Whether you like Trump or hate him, it's modeled after Versailles. It's like almost uncanny how accurate that is. And people hate Donald Trump because he's got Mars right in the ascendant. He's very abrasive to those he doesn't like, but I actually have people who know him, and I can tell you, he everyone I speak to says he is very courteous to those who he works with. But he's abrasive. You know, he does do name calling like Nancy does, and we've seen a different kind of politics than we've ever seen, in at least in my lifetime.
Entertaining.
Very entertaining. He's rather refreshing in some ways.
It is. Jeff, unfortunately, we've run out of time with you tonight. We've enjoyed this so much. Again, what a wealth of information you've brought to our audience and to PK and I, and we're so appreciative. And we've got to have you back. My gosh, there's so much more to talk about.
Well, I like PK.
Great.
She's awesome, man. She used to come over and remember we did those lattes.
You got to go visit her. Go visit her in Tucson. But I just want to announce one more time for people that want their own personal readings with Jeff, go to Jeff Harman, HARMAN.com. And Jeff, thank you so much. Next week we'll be back, everybody, with another great show. We're going to Egypt next week, so be sure to join us. And until then,
hey, I want to come.
See you. Yeah, I know. Well, we'll see you on the Blue Highway, everybody.
You take care, huh?
Yes.
Many blessings to you all.
Good night.
You bet. Bye.
Take care. Good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural Girls.